So now we're going to go ahead and take a look at using cloth. So let's go ahead and set up our scene. We're going to create a sphere to start off with, and this will be a sphere that will interact with our cloth object. And just go ahead and make it pretty big. Alright, there we go. And we're going to apply a rigid body to it. And go ahead and uncheck use gravity. So right now we're going to have a cloth object basically fall on top of this sphere so we can see what it looks like. So we need to go ahead and create a cloth. So go up to game object, create other, go down to cloth. Let's raise this up. Let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger as well. Right there is good. Alright, so it looks like it's pretty evenly along our sphere here. So let's go ahead and test it out and see what the default values look like. Let's go ahead and make sure that our camera is actually looking at the cloth object. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and select my camera, go to game object, align with view, and we have a good view right now. Alright, so that is the default values of our cloth. You can see that it's hitting that rigid body, which is the sphere, and it's slowly falling off. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these settings here. So let's go ahead and select our interactive cloth. Alright, so the bending stiffness, you can adjust this. If we hit play, we can be able to see how this works. So you can adjust the bending stiffness here. You can see that if we increase the bending stiffness, it'll act more like a rigid type of cloth. So right now it's set to 0, so it doesn't have any stiffness at all. Then the stretching stiffness, if you decrease this all the way down, it'll act very, very stretchy. So you can see it pretty much goes all the way down and stretches the whole way down. Try that again. You can see it's a lot less stretchy. Then damping just basically slows down our object. Thickness, obviously you can increase the thickness to make it a thicker looking cloth object. I'm going to go with a thickness of 1. Alright, use gravity is pretty self-explanatory. Self-collision. Self-collision is basically when the cloth interacts with itself. So we hit play and we can see that it snaps back and forth. That's the cloth interacting with itself. That is our self-collision. Alright, then we have external acceleration and random acceleration. For both of these, this basically applies a acceleration in a certain axis. So we can say, if we take a look at our cloth here, we can have it apply a acceleration in the x-axis. So let's go ahead and go with the negative number, -5. Press enter. Now what that's going to do is apply a -5 acceleration going towards the back here, since the x is facing this way. So a positive number would mean it would push it this way. A negative number would mean it would push it that way. So we hit play. You can see that it kind of pushes it a little bit backward. Let's go ahead and adjust this number, make it 10. And now it should have more force. You can see it started moving backwards a little bit more and starting to slip away. So that is external acceleration. And it's pretty much the same thing with random acceleration, except it randomly does it. Then we have our mesh set to a plane, which is what we have here. Then we have friction, density, pressure. These are all pretty self-explanatory. You can just go ahead and play around with these to get something that you like. Then collision response. This basically determines the response we're going to have whenever we interact with any other rigid bodies. Then we have attachment tear factor. Now, attachment tear factor basically comes into play once we have colliders that are attached to this object, basically holding this cloth object up. So we're going to go ahead and create some of those. Let's go ahead and create a few spheres. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this one. I'm going to go ahead and rename it first so I don't get confused. I'm just going to name it holder. And I'm going to go ahead and right click, duplicate. I'm just going to name this holder 2. Alright, so now let's go ahead and move our cloth. I'm going to make sure that it's actually touching these two spheres up here. and we can center it up a bit. I'm going to move this sphere out of the way. Alright, so now if we hit play, nothing happens. Well, that's because we forgot to attach these to basically make it so that these are our actual holders. So let's go back to our interactive cloth, and right here where it says attach colliders, you're going to set the size to however many colliders you have. So we only have 2, so let's change this to 2, press enter, and now we can add them. So we can just either click right here to find them, so holder 1, then our second one, holder 2. Now we hit play, you can see that our flag is being held up. Let's go ahead and change the camera angle to better view this. And it's somewhat holding on to this one, but this one kind of pretty much ripped off. So let's go ahead and make sure that these are attached properly. Try it again. And it's a little bit better, but you can see it's holding on to the cloth by these 2 colliders up here. Alright, then finally, if we take a look at these other settings in here, we have a attachment tear factor. That basically determines how much of a factor is going to be applied once this cloth starts moving around, how much of a force we'll need before the cloth actually rips off these colliders right here. Then we have attachment response, which basically determines what kind of force will be applied once we actually start moving this cloth around. So basically, these colliders will start, whether we're going to have these colliders come down with the cloth or not. So that's the attachment response. And then tear factor is the actual tearing of the cloth itself. Alright, so that is the basics of using interactive cloth. You can use this for anything from flags to curtains to even, maybe even a cape on a humanoid type object in your game. So go ahead and experiment with some of these. It's pretty fun to use around. And we'll see you in the next video.